Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. What a day of college football. Oh, these days, these nights, these Saturdays in the fall just make me happy. They just make me smile. And listen, I know everyone's different, right? Everyone has different life experiences. Everyone speaks in different tongues and comes from different households. But if you can't appreciate a college football Saturday like this, if you didn't just sit back and you might have gone to a game or two or three, if you're about that lifestyle. You might have watched all the games at home. You might have just watched one of the games. But if you didn't enjoy some college football on this beautiful September Saturday, this just might not be the right place for you. Because this day was unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. This might be the best week of the year that we'll ever experience. I mean, I hope not. I hope it gets better from this, but I mean, how can it possibly get better? I mean, we saw Georgia, Tennessee, maybe the game of the year. This game was awesome. I'm literally watching the highlights on the Minnesota halftime show right now. I mean, Tennessee, oh my gosh, how did they lose this game? I have no idea how they lost this game. Unreal performance from the Georgia Bulldogs to scratch and claw and win this one in overtime in Knoxville. And then the night game, we had A&M Notre Dame. How was that a good game? I mean, we watched this game last year, didn't we? It was terrible. Nobody wanted to watch that game. And then all of a sudden we come back and we have this 41-40 shootout. Marcel Reed throws for 360. I don't understand how this game was so awesome, but it was unbelievable. Huge win. Best win of Mike Elko's tenure at Texas A&M. Definitely. This is the first road win against the top 25 team for A&M since like 2015 or something. I think it's 2014 actually, and they do it at number 8 Notre Dame, who, by the way, might be the best 0-2 team of all time. So that game was unbelievable. Also, Georgia Tech wins at the buzzer over Clemson. Huge win. They snap a 9-game losing streak to Clemson. Vandy goes into South Carolina, injures Lenore Sellers. That was a sad one. And then hangs 31 on the Gamecocks and wins by 24. First time they've beaten South Carolina since 2008. Alabama dominates. Let's see what else happened. LSU gets another big win. They're still undefeated. Just an amazing day of football. Even Ole Miss wins an amazing game, 41-35. We haven't even talked about that yet. That was an awesome game. So much fun. So much to get to. These are just the days that we live for as college football fans. The days that we love as sports fans, collectively. I had so much fun today watching these games. I got Minnesota Cal pulled up right now on TV behind me, or in front of me rather, which should be another thriller. I mean, this was peak college football at its absolute best. To quote Josh Heupel, and I just cannot wait to get into it. We're gonna start there. We're gonna start in Knoxville. Wow. What an unbelievable game. I mean, unbelievable how awesome this game was. I mean, it's SEC football. Of course something like this is going to happen every once a year, but wow. So going into this game, I thought Tennessee was going to get beat straight up. I thought Georgia was way more talented. I thought Georgia was way better coached. And I thought they would roll into Knoxville and win pretty convincingly. I mean, they have the last 8 years. But Tennessee comes out and goes 3 for 3 and scores on their first 3 possessions. I think Joey Aguilar in the first quarter, I think his stat line was 14 for 14, 218 yards and 3 touchdowns against Kirby Smart in the first quarter. It was unbelievable what he was doing. Every time I looked at the TV, it was Chris Brazzell going down the sideline for a touchdown. And they were balling out. And a lot of that is contributed, I think, in football terms, was the script. Tennessee, Josh Heupel came into the script with their first 3 drives. They knew what they were going to run. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew what they were going to get from Georgia, and they executed perfectly, which is not easy to do, but it makes sense. And then when the script was over, when those plays ran out, then it slowed down, and it started to turn. It really started to turn. Georgia started to run the ball. They started to control the game. It looked like this was, clean old-fashioned Georgia, and they were just going to sort of squeeze Tennessee out of it. And they took the lead. I think they took a 24-21 lead and then 27-21. And I thought Tennessee was dead in the water. They were dead in the water. They couldn't move the football. And I remember I said to Will, I turned and I said to him, hey, someone's got to make a play on Tennessee. and somebody did. It was Chris Brazzell. That dude just went full-on Jalen Hyatt mode in this game and balled out. He made a couple huge catches. If you haven't listened to the Spanish play-by-play call of his touchdown in the third quarter, oh my gosh, electric. We need to get those Spanish dudes calling on ESPN because it's awesome. They came out, made plays. The crowd got back into it, and it looked like they were going to win. Again, they were up 38-30. And then Gunnar Stockton, just so much praise to Gunnar Stockton. First SEC road start. Goes 23 for 31, 304 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did he struggle? Yes, he didn't play perfect, but he made some huge throws. He trusted his wide receivers. And if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm looking at what Gunnar Stockton did, and I'm saying, that's my guy. That is my guy, Gunnar Stockton. I'm with him all season long. And none were bigger than the throw to Parker Livingston on 4th and 6. That's how much trust he has in his receivers. You don't see that all that often. 4th and 6, man-to-man coverage on the outside, and instead of trying to conservatively get the first down, he reads man on man. Then he says, we got this. My boy Parker's down there. And he gives him a chance, and he puts a perfect throw right in the breadbasket to Mr. Livingston. And then a 2-point conversion to Zachariah Branch later, and Georgia ties the game. Then Tennessee gets it back. Looks like they're going to win. They missed the field goal. Max Gilbert. Oh my gosh, I felt so bad for Max Gilbert. You could tell right away. I was kneeling on the ground right there, and it just faded wide right. And right as he kicked it, I was like, oh my gosh, he missed it. And he did. Crazy game. Georgia ends up winning in overtime with a rushing touchdown. Crazy stuff. Again, all shout-outs in the world, in my opinion, go to Gunnar Stockton. Georgia, this is the win that's going to create their culture, that's going to bind them together as a team. This is the team that I do not want to play. They're going off a bye week. Then they get Alabama. That game is going to be cinema again. Huge win for Georgia. Cannot overstate that. That is a huge win for Georgia. Even Kirby Smart said this. This is how I'm going to start talking about Tennessee. Kirby Smart said, they outplayed us. 100%. They outcoached us, and their players outplayed us, and we still won. And that is true. Tennessee, I felt so bad for Tennessee. And listen, I try and be as fair and as bipartisan as I can be. I don't love Tennessee, but I felt so bad for them in this game. Because I loved that environment, that Rocky Top environment. It's really what's one of the best in college football. Those fans were up for it all day long, and they were winning. They were dominating this game, and they should have won this game. If they played this game over 100 times, with Tennessee having as good of a start as they did, and having as good of a chance to win on the last drive as they did, and telling me they lost, they should have won this game easily. They completely outplayed Georgia, and yet Georgia found a way. So, if you're a Tennessee fan, I felt so bad that they didn't pull this one off. I thought this was going to be the year they beat Georgia because of how this game was going. And they just came up just a little bit short. But great effort. Unbelievable effort. I mean, Josh Heupel, again, fabulous coach. And you could see that with the script I was talking about, the first couple of drives. Flawless, unbelievable football played by Tennessee. And then, like I said, it started to die out because, again, Joey Aguilar doesn't have that much experience in these type of games. He just doesn't. He's coming from Appalachian State. Before that, he was at some random JUCO school. And so he faded away a little bit, which is understandable. He's not going to play perfect out there. But then guys came through when they needed them to come through. Star Thomas had a couple of big runs. And the run game, which, of course, is usually the staple of Heupel's offense, was a little stagnant. But Star Thomas broke through and had a couple of big runs late to really propel their offense. Chris Brazzell, too. Oh, my gosh. I thought he was just some sort of mid-filler wide receiver, some role player that, found soft spots in zones and was a veteran for this offense. But he was maybe the best player on the field this game. He only had 6 catches, but he had 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he was balling. Like 2 of the touchdowns, he completely went up and just dunked on Georgia corners and ran for a touchdown. And Joey Aguilar was just saying, there's my man, one-on-one with a deep cover 3 safety or a deep cover 3 corner. I'm just gonna huck it up there and give him a chance. And he made those plays and kept Tennessee in this game. Not just kept Tennessee in this game, but pushed Tennessee ahead in this game. So all shout out to Chris Brazzell. I think Tennessee, this is a big win. Obviously, not a big win, obviously you lost, but there was a lot of things to be happy about. I was not high on Tennessee to start this year. I thought that they were not going to have a great year. They were going to take a step back from last year. Do I still think that record-wise? Yes. I don't think Tennessee's making the playoffs. But this was really, really fun team to watch, and I really think they're going to be fun to watch all year. Defensively, leaves a little bit to be concerned, but I will say, my take on this game, defensively for Tennessee, you were without maybe your two best defensive players with Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson. If those two guys are healthy, you're winning this game 100%. Because Georgia and Gunnar Stockton, they got a lot of their yards picking on these Tennessee corners, the young corners on the outside. Whether it was targeting Parker Livingston or, Zachariah Branch didn't do a ton, but he made a couple big plays after the catch. Colby Young made a couple of huge plays. The 45-yard catch early in the game was huge. And a lot of that was just Stockton having trust in his receivers to win the matchups with these inexperienced Tennessee corners. And if you had McCoy and Gibson in the game, your two of the best corners in the SEC, that would not have been the case. And I think Tennessee would have won this game. Of course, injuries are a part of football, so it's not an excuse for Tennessee. It's just something to look back on as Vols fans and saying, you know what, our team is okay. There's no reason to panic. If the ball rolled the right way in this game, or if we were more healthy, we would have won. I 100% believe that for Tennessee. I think a lot of Vols fans are really going to pick on Max Gilbert for this one. It's understandable. He missed the game-winning field goal. But man, you cannot go out there and pick on a guy like that for that one play, because guess what? A lot of Tennessee players made mistakes. A lot of mistakes that if you take them away, this game is very winnable. So it's not all on Max Gilbert, because he never should have been put in that situation where he had to make that kick. When you score a touchdown on your first 3 drives of the game and you're winning 38-30 with under a minute to go, you should win the game without relying on a kick from your kicker. Also, thank the Lord he made that kick in overtime. If Gilbert had missed that kick in overtime, he would have never heard the end of this game. So that was a good thing to see for Max. But yeah, just an unbelievable game. Just SEC football at its finest. Great crowd in Knoxville. I can't wait to watch Tennessee the rest of the year. And Georgia, they continue to remain to be contenders in the SEC. I 100% believe that. But they got some work to do, that's for sure, especially in the secondary. Usually, the Georgia secondary is the strong part of their team, but a lot of these Tennessee wide receivers, and let me say, this Tennessee receiving core going into the year was not looked at by anyone as one of the top receiving cores in the SEC. Of course, Chris Bowser made a lot of plays. Braylon Staley made a ton of big plays, 9 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. And Mike Matthews, the true freshman, also made an impact. Not as much as the other guys, but he was still there. And if the Tennessee receivers can do this, no disrespect to the Tennessee receivers, of course, these guys balled out. But what happens when you have to play Alabama with Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams? Or you have to play LSU with Aaron Anderson? Not that they're playing them in the regular season, but my point still stands. This secondary for Georgia is looking a little, I don't want to say it's not a weak point. It's just still a question mark, which is never the case for a Kirby Smart coached team. But just interesting to see. Also, and this is more credit to Tennessee's pass rush. Tennessee's pass rush was awesome this game, especially Caleb Herring, Dominic Bailey, and Jordan Ross. They all made big plays. But, the Tennessee offensive line, those tackles kind of got a little beat at times by these Tennessee edge rushers. And a lot of that, again, credit to Tennessee. But Georgia's not perfect. I heard a friend say, I really want Georgia to lose this game so I can be proven that they're not unbeatable. And Tennessee just proved that they're not unbeatable. So this is what's going to be the SEC in all of the year, because all the teams are so good that there's barely any competitive advantages. So we're going to see so many amazing games like this. This is the first of many, in my opinion. But this might be the best one. Awesome game in Knoxville. Big win for Georgia. For Tennessee, again, it's okay. No reason to panic. Josh Heupel is still a top 5 coach in the SEC, and you're going to be fine. I promise. And if you're not going to be fine and you're worried about not being fine, just go check UCLA's scores, because that's a place of peace and therapy for Tennessee fans. Because I don't know if y'all saw, but Friday night UCLA got dominated by New Mexico. That's just a little side tangent, but that did happen. Next game we're going to talk about was any other week. This would have been the game of the week, but it happened to fall on the Georgia-Tennessee game. Again, you could still make the argument it was the best game this week, and I will have no argument to stop you. Go make that argument. I don't care. Texas A&M, the Aggies that lost by putting up like 7 points against Texas. The Aggies that put up like 13 points against Notre Dame last year go into South Bend and drop 41 on Notre Dame to win on the road against a number 8 team. Never would have expected this. And I don't mean Texas A&M winning. That doesn't shock me in and of itself. That's not the most surprising thing in the world. Of course, I didn't pick it to happen. I picked Notre Dame. But the way that A&M won was what was so shocking about it. Marcel Reed threw for 360 yards. And, a lot of people are going to go out and say, wow, Marcel Reed, best quarterback in the SEC, such a good passer, so improved, an awesome player for this team. And, to an extent, I agree with some of that. He's an awesome player. He's a baller. But he's not the most efficient quarterback. I'm just going to say that. He was 17 of 37. But let's not talk about their flaws right now. The thing that impressed me the most, the two things that impressed me the most about Texas A&M, first of all, the offensive line and the pass protection that they gave Marcel Reed. So Marcel Reed attempted 37 passes. Marcel Reed was sacked 0 times. Not once, not one time did Notre Dame get Marcel Reed on the ground behind the line of scrimmage. And this is a Notre Dame pass rush that's pretty good. Bryce Young is supposed to be this awesome pass rusher. Literally, didn't do anything in this game in terms of getting to the quarterback. So shout out to the Texas A&M offensive line pass protecting for Marcel Reed. Not an easy thing to do against this Notre Dame front, and they did it. So that was huge. That was a big part about what made this Texas A&M offense churn. And the second biggest part, Mr. Mario Craver, 7 catches, not 107 yards, but 207 yards and a touchdown. Of course, he made the big 86-yard touchdown catch on Texas A&M's first touchdown. That play was electric. He broke 3 tackles on the sideline and ran for a touchdown. I didn't actually get to watch that play live. I got back, and we were 3 minutes into the game, and it was already 7-7. I was like, what on earth just happened in this game? But he balled out. Casey Concepcion, who I think is one of the most overrated players in college football, made a couple of huge catches, especially the 45-yard catch down the sideline, right at the goal line, down at the 1. Big-time play, helped them score a touchdown there. But these wide receivers, in the past, A&M's wide receivers have struggled to sort of, they were good, they made plays, but they were never elite guys that really impacted the game in an enormous way. And Craver did that today. Concepcion made a huge impact. And I really like Terry Bussey. He didn't do very much, but that as your number 3 receiver option is super, super solid. Again, if you told me A&M would drop 41 points, I would have expected that they ran the ball for over 300 yards. They only ran the ball for 128 yards, pretty much all of it with Le'Veon Moss, who had 81 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know. This is not the identity that I thought A&M would have. Their longest rush by a running back was 12 yards, and that was Le'Veon Moss, who averaged only 4 yards a carry. So credit Notre Dame for, I don't want to say stopping the run, because they didn't necessarily just stifle it, but credit Notre Dame for knocking A&M off of what they wanted to do, which is run the ball. Or supposedly, who knows, maybe they really wanted to pass the ball with Marcel Reed, but I don't think that's the case. I don't know. I would have expected A&M to run the ball a lot more effectively, and they didn't. So I don't know if that's a concern for the Aggies or if it's a big compliment for Notre Dame. But whatever it was, A&M still put up 41 points. The offense is fine. A&M's defense, of course, Notre Dame scored 40. One of those touchdowns was on a blocked punt, I believe. But, when you hear Mike Elko coming into A&M, everyone's talking about, the defense this, the defense that, the blitz packages, the corners, the man coverage, all that sort of stuff. is going to make this A&M defense elite. I haven't seen that yet from Texas A&M's defense under Mike Elko's head coaching tenure. Of course, in the losses last year, you got mauled by Auburn's offense. They were running all over you, and that's Peyton Thorne you let run all over you. They got smoked by South Carolina's offense. They ran the ball for like 7,000 yards. And then in this game, you got torched by C.J. Carr and Jeremiah Love for the most part. And, I know those guys are great players, and I'll talk about them in a minute. But this Mike Elko offense is supposed to win games, Mike Elko defense is supposed to win games by holding teams to 20 points, not 40. So if A&M really wants to make noise in the SEC and be an elite team in the SEC, they're fine being a good team in the SEC. That's not something that A&M has trouble with. But if they want to be elite in the SEC, if they want to try and make it to Atlanta, if they want to beat the LSUs, the Texases, those type of teams, they're going to have to actually develop a Mike Elko defense, because those other teams, I'm talking Texas, I'm talking Bama, I'm talking LSU, those teams have fabulous defenses that actually show up, that are not just a head coach's name. So if you're A&M and you want to be elite, first of all, if you're an A&M fan, just a stroke, enjoy this. Don't go looking for things to improve on. Enjoy this win. This is an awesome, awesome win. But don't believe that your team is perfect, because it's not. I'm just going to say that. But great win, of course. Again, biggest win for Mike Elko at his time at A&M as the head coach. I 100% stand by that. And the Aggies, believe it or not, do not have that tough of a schedule remaining. They have Auburn next week at home. Actually, they have Auburn in 2 weeks. They're coming off a bye. So they have a bye, and then Auburn at home, and then Mississippi State at home. Again, none of these SEC games are going to be gimmies. But these are teams that are not at the top tier of the SEC. Then you get Florida at home. That's very winnable too. I mean, Lagway just threw about 530 interceptions, I think, against LSU and Death Valley. Then you go at Arkansas. Of course, Arkansas's got a great offense, but that's a very winnable game. At LSU's a tough one. At Missouri's a tough one. South Carolina just got the brakes thrown off of them. Samford and Texas. So very, very manageable schedule for Texas A&M the rest of the way. Could they run the table and maybe make the SEC championship game? What I think they can do is run the table and make the game against Texas at the end of the year a play-in game for the SEC championship game, which is what it was last year, by the way. A lot of people forget that, but if A&M had beaten Texas last year, they would have been in Atlanta. I think they can make that the case again this year, which would be electric to have that game with that much on the line once again. So again, huge win for Texas A&M. Now we get to Notre Dame. This is rough. It's a rough start to the year for Notre Dame. You lose in week 1 by 3 points on a last-second field goal on the road at Miami. Your freshman quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback, started his first game and showed some flashes, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'll take this. A lot of Notre Dame fans I knew said, I'm happy with this result. Of course, I didn't want to lose, but we saw some things from C.J. Carr. We can improve. I really like this team. I really like this start. And then you go into the game against A&M week 3 after the bye week, and you lose at home in heartbreaking fashion. I mean, this game was just gut-wrenching for Notre Dame. They had the lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, there was lead changes all over the place. Of course, no one really had control of this game. But man, the way they lost with Tyler Buckner fumbling the hold, I remember I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, Tyler Buckner just sold this game for them. Tyler Buckner has been all over college football. He's been, not great at Notre Dame, and then not great at Alabama, and then back to being not great at Notre Dame. That was rough. And you also just got beat on a fade route to Nate Boerkircher. I don't even know how to say his name, but he that's a rough way to lose for Notre Dame. But I said this to one of my Irish friends. I said, Notre Dame, he told me that Notre Dame is the best 0-2 team in the country, and I 100% second that. But they might be the best 0-2 team of all time. This might be the best start to a season that a team can possibly have while also losing your first 2 games, which is really weird, but true. I think this Notre Dame offense took a big step forward from their first week in Miami. Against Miami, of course, my main critiques are, why didn't you run the ball more? You have Jeremiah Love, you have Jadarian Price, you have a great offensive line, you're Notre Dame, why are you not running the ball more? And they really ran the ball a lot more and a lot more effectively this week against A&M. Jeremiah Love, 94 yards and a touchdown. Also, Jeremiah Love made an awesome catch and run for a touchdown in this game. He one-handed a catch from CJ Carr and then just sprinted and somersaulted into the end zone over an A&M defender. Average Jeremiah Love shenanigans. That dude is just unbelievably athletic. Again, A&M contained Jeremiah Love as much as they could, but Notre Dame got in the ball more. Also, Jadarian Price had a big game too, 68 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 12 carries. So the offense ran the ball a lot more effectively, and they trusted CJ Carr to make downfield throws more often. He did make some mistakes, There were a couple mistakes, a couple interceptions that you really didn't want to see. But at the same time, he also made some big throws. Eli Raridan might be the best tight end in the country from what I've seen from him. He had 4 catches, 85 yards. This wide receiver core is really dynamic. I really like it. Of course, Love out of the backfield. Greathouse hasn't really stepped up as much this year, but Malachi Fields has been his number 1 option. Faison is so dynamic if they can get it to him in space more. And then on the defensive side of the ball, of course, you did lose a lot from last year at the linebacker position, at the safety position, at the corner position. So this is really, defensively, I would say this is the biggest job Freeman has had to do at Notre Dame in terms of restocking and rebuilding this defense. And I don't know. To me, the biggest concern with this defense was the pressure on the quarterback, which was non-existent. They didn't provide any pressure. When you have a quarterback drop back 37 times to pass and doesn't get sacked once, that's concerning, at least in my opinion. So that's really got to get fixed. Luckily for Notre Dame, they have a lot of time to fix that. These are their 2 toughest games, 100%. Notre Dame does not have a harder game than Miami or Texas A&M left on their schedule. They get Purdue, they get Arkansas on the road. It's an 11 o'clock game. That's going to be interesting. Boise State, NC State, USC is going to be really interesting. I've got stuff to say on them later on. You got to play Navy. You got to play at Pitt. So it's not a cakewalk schedule. But you've definitely been tested as much as you want to be early. And if there's any two times to have losses in a college football season, it's week 1 and week 2. So they still have potential. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. But they cannot make any more mistakes from this point forward, which is a little sketchy because you got a lot of iffy games on your schedule. But I think you can pull it out. Again, the number 1 thing I want to stress about this game, huge win for Texas A&M. It's awesome for that fan base. It's awesome for Mike Elko. It's awesome for Marcel Reed and this wide receiver core and this offensive line to get this huge win on the road at Notre Dame. Unbelievable result for Texas A&M. Did not think they could pull this one off, and they did. Next game, of course, this has been determined by me as the 3rd best game of the week, which shows you how awesome this week was. But Georgia Tech ends its 9-game losing streak to the Clemson Tigers on a last-second Baylor TCU-esque walk-off field goal. What a ball game. This game made me so happy. If you've watched our podcast before, you know how much I love Haynes King. I've talked about him all the time as my favorite player in college football. And that's for one main reason. I'm gonna paint the picture of Haynes King's career. So, really highly touted recruit out of high school, right? And he was either a low 5-star or a really high 4-star. Commits to A&M. He's going to be the starting quarterback. He's going to take the reins for this Aggies program. And then he gets injured against Colorado and misses the whole season after COVID when they were ranked in the top 10 to start the year. So that's devastating. Devastating for Haynes King. Comes back the next year, starts out as the backup quarterback. But then gets subbed in due to more injuries. And goes on the road to Alabama to try and win back-to-back against the Crimson Tide. Fights his heart out in that game. He played so hard. He tried so hard to win that game for the Aggies and came up a field goal short, just barely short in that game. Fast forward, transfers to Georgia Tech, pulls off a big win against Florida State and Miami that year. And then the season is on the line against Georgia, your bitter rival, a chance for Haynes King to once again make his mark on college football with a big-time win, and he had it. He had that game. Georgia Tech should have won that game easily. They dominated. Haynes King had an awesome game, and yet you fumble the ball in your own territory. Your defense collapses. You go into 8 overtimes, and you barely lose. Just a heartbreaker of a game to a bitter rival. That's how your career's gone so far. And after that game against Georgia, the Haynes King press conference, he says, a reporter asked him how he's feeling. He says, I'm tired of giving everything I got and just coming out on the losing end. I'm tired of feeling that way. Because that's all he's done. All he's done in his college football career is give everything that he has, try his hardest to win these big games against the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world on the road, and he hasn't gotten that signature win. Fast forward to 2025 Week 3. Georgia Tech hosts Clemson, a team they haven't beaten in 9 years. A team that if they beat, they might finally get that national media accreditation. And they go in there. Haynes King rushes for over 100 yards, throws for 211 yards, responsible for a touchdown. And the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets pull it off against Clemson. And if you're watching the game on ABC, or ESPN, it ends with a camera shot of Brent Key hugging Haynes King in the middle of the field, and then zooms out to the field-rushed Atlanta field, and just an amazing scene for Georgia Tech. An amazing moment for Haynes King. As good of a college football story as any, finally gets his huge win, and it just made me so happy. I mean, college football fans had this game circled on their schedule. Clemson going into Georgia Tech, and we didn't know what we were going to get. I thought we were going to get a great game. I had Georgia Tech as number 19 in my Stellar Shenanigans, and Clemson as number 18. So I thought this was going to be a really close game, and I'm so happy for Haynes King and Brent Key and this Georgia Tech team that they pulled it off. It just makes me smile. That whole story that I just told just makes me smile. It's one of the best player stories that I've heard in a long time in college football. I'm so happy for Haynes King. I'm so happy for this team. And Georgia Tech could be contenders in the ACC, which would be awesome. I would love that. But how did this happen? That's the question. So looking at the box score here, if you just show me the box score, this is why box score is live, by the way. You can't just look at a box score. You have to actually watch the game if you want to talk about college football and you want me to listen to you. If you showed me the box score of this game and you told me that Jamal Haynes ran for 12 carries for just 26 yards, and then Adam Randall carried it 15 times for 80 yards for Clemson, I would have thought, okay, obviously Clemson won this game. Georgia Tech couldn't establish a run game. That's all Georgia Tech tries to do is establish a run game, and you're telling me that Jamal Haynes, their RB1, had 12 carries for 26 yards. No way they won this game. And Clemson, the main concern for them was they can't establish a run game and they can't provide any consistency on offense. So if Clemson establishes a run game and Georgia Tech doesn't, obviously Clemson's going to win. And yet, we're sitting here at 11:45 p.m. on a Saturday night, and Georgia Tech had 24 and Clemson had 21. James Brockington, let's go, baby. Come on, Gophers. I'm watching the Minnesota game right now. I'm a big Gopher fan this year. So how did this happen? I will say, Clemson turnovers. Klubnik had an interception and he had a fumble. Both of those led to points for Georgia Tech. So fabulous job capitalizing off of mistakes from the other team. Big plays to the passing game. Eric Rivers, 3 catches, 72 yards. Isaiah Canyon had a 39-yard completion. Jamal Haynes had a 45-yard catch out of the backfield. So they made a lot of big plays, and they capitalized off of Clemson turnovers. And this Clemson offense didn't really make a lot of big plays late, and Georgia Tech managed the clock perfectly at the end of the game. So great coaching, phenomenal coaching by Brent Key, phenomenal effort from Haynes King, 103 yards rushing like I mentioned before, didn't turn the ball over. If they had done what they had done against Colorado, turning the ball over 3 times in the first quarter, they would have been cooked in this game. But instead they went out there and took care of the ball. They capitalized on Clemson's mistakes, and they made big plays, which is all you can ask for in a game like this, and they pulled it out. Georgia Tech beat Clemson, which makes me so happy. Again, might be, I don't want to say biggest win for Brent Key, but the best start of the year for Brent Key under Georgia Tech, being 3-0 with wins on the road at Colorado and at home against ACC frontrunner at the beginning of the year, Clemson. Of course, now it's probably Miami. As far as the rest of your schedule, honestly, you got Temple. Temple just got smacked by Oklahoma. Then you got Wake Forest, who is 2-1. That's Robbie Ashford's team, who just lost to NC State. Should win that game. Then you got Virginia Tech, who just got boat raced by Old Dominion. Virginia Tech's 0-3. Georgia Tech, you should win that game. Then you got Duke. Duke just lost to Tulane. Then you got Syracuse, who almost lost to UConn. Then you got NC State on the road. Could be a tough game. Who knows? Then you got Boston College, Pitt, and then you end with Georgia. So this schedule works out so well for Georgia Tech to contend in the ACC and give Georgia a run for their money at the end of the year, which I would be so amped about. That game's 2:30 on the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So I'm looking too far ahead. I know I am. But Georgia Tech could sneak into the playoffs if they manage the schedule correctly, because they don't have to play Miami in the regular season. They don't have to play SMU. They don't have to play, who else is contenders in the ACC? I mean, they've already beaten Clemson. So they really, the rest of their path is pretty clear, which I think is very impressive. And for Clemson, we're going to shift the gears to Clemson now. Man, this is rough. This is rough to talk about. Going into this year, people, of course, at the end of last year were saying, okay, of course, we know this story with Clemson. They're good enough to win the ACC, but they're not good enough to make any sort of national noise. Of course, going 0-4 against SEC teams was really the discrepancy on their schedule that people were looking at and saying they can't contend nationally. And they go out and lose to LSU to start the year, and those voices just get louder. Of course, you can't beat an SEC team. You obviously can't. We've seen you try and fail numerous times. And then you go out and you struggle with Troy, and then you go out and you lose to Georgia Tech, 1-2 to start the year, for who a lot of people picked as their national champions. Not good for Dabo Swinney, not good for Clemson. I looked at this team, wow, PJ Fleck is mad about something. I looked at this team and I said, you know what? They have a chance. They're pretty much the same Clemson team from last year, so I don't expect them to win the national championship, but I expect them to contend. And now I look at this team and I say, where's the fight? Where's the passion? Where's the, I want to go make big plays down the stretch to win a game for my team. Brian Wesco was great. Other than that, I mean, Klubnik has been not anywhere as good as he was last year, and he wasn't elite last year, but he was better last year than he has been this year. They haven't been able to run the ball consistently. Their supposedly best defensive line in the country has been far from that. I don't know. This is very disappointing. Not only is Clemson not nearly good enough to contend for a national title, they also appear to be not good enough to contend for an ACC title, which is beyond anyone's imagination of this team at the beginning of the year. Of course, I was much lower on Clemson than a lot of the media was. I didn't really think they had a chance to contend nationally because they didn't last year with the same team. But man, I did not expect Clemson to go into week 3 or into week 4 with one win. Their one sack, by the way, this game was Sammy Brown, linebacker on a linebacker blitz. Peter Woods didn't really do anything. TJ Parker didn't really do anything. Disappointment. Just a sigh. Collective sigh for Clemson fans. It's rough. It's rough out there for you. But you know what? The season's not over. Okay, one loss in the ACC, it could be a whole lot worse. You gotta hope Georgia Tech kind of falls off a little bit if you want to make the ACC championship. Does the schedule get easier? It gets easier than playing LSU and Georgia Tech in the span of 3 weeks. You got Syracuse, North Carolina, Boston College, SMU, Duke, Florida State. So you have some tough games, especially Louisville, Furman, South Carolina at the end of the year. But there's a chance for improvement here. Dabo Swinney, this was supposed to be your team. This was supposed to be your year that you made your mark historically on college football. And it's not going to happen. I feel for Dabo Swinney. I feel for Clemson fans. I feel for Cade Klubnik. But this was Georgia Tech's day. This was Haynes King's day. And I'm not mad about it because I love Georgia Tech. Next game to talk about another slug out for LSU, but another win for LSU. This is another weird story in college football this year is the LSU Tigers and how they're winning these games. If you told me LSU would be 3-0, I would have said, okay, that makes sense. I picked him to beat Clemson. I picked him to beat Louisiana Tech, obviously, and I picked him to beat Florida, so I would have projected that would happen. But if you told me that they would beat Clemson, Louisiana Tech, and Florida and average 20 points a game over that span, I would have kicked you out of my apartment and laughed at you as you walked down the stairs. There's no way. You can go, you put up 17 against Clemson and won. You put up 23 against Louisiana Tech and won easily. You put up 20 at home against DJ Lagway in Florida and controlled the game the whole time. Let's go Minnesota, touchdown, Gophers. Oh, that gets me so hyped. Big tight end, yes sir. Anyway, Jamison Gears, what a name with a tight end. Shout out Jamison Gears. Any Jamison Gears fans watching, that was huge. Back to LSU. All shout outs in the world need to go to Blake Baker and this amazing defense that Brian Kelly and Blake Baker have been able to bring in and craft and mold around this culture. And this gives off vibes of Les Miles, early Les Miles LSU. The fact that they're winning games 20-10 in Death Valley. This would have never been the case last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that. It's a completely different LSU team than we've ever seen. And what's crazy is they lost their best defensive player. Whit Weeks went out in the first quarter, early in the first quarter for targeting. He's their leader. He's their captain. He's their best tackler. He's the heart and soul of their defense. And with LSU, if you're the heart and soul of their defense this year, that means you're the heart and the soul of the team. And he was injured. And they still killed Florida on the defensive side of the ball. Lagway, of course, threw 5 interceptions. Goodness gracious. And a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, it's easy to be a great defense when the quarterback's thrown it to you 5 times. And first of all, you're not wrong. Because DJ Lagway, a lot of these interceptions were bad interceptions. Which is, it's really not what you want to see if you're a Florida fan or a DJ Lagway fan, because it was bad. But before we talk about that, props to LSU's defense. Again, they held Florida, I think, to 79 yards rushing, I think was the final tally in this game for the Gators. Let me check real quick, pulling it up. Give us a second. Wi-Fi in present place isn't always the fastest. Cabo Bob's Cup, by the way. Shout out to the greatest restaurant chain on the planet. Let's see, final tally. Yep, Florida had 79 yards rushing. I am the chosen one on 27 attempts. So, of course, LSU knocked Florida off their rhythm. Of course, Florida is now used to being knocked off their rhythm because they've done it in 2 consecutive games. So they forced DJ Lagway to throw the ball 49 times. This was not a choice from Florida. This is not what they were trying to do. But they had to because LSU was completely taking away the run, which is what they did against Clemson too. So, and those are 2 teams, Florida and Clemson, that walked into this year and you kind of assumed that they would run the ball really well. And they didn't at all against LSU. So big shout out. Once again, I feel like I'm doing this every single episode, every single instant reaction, but big shout out to LSU's defense. Best defense in the country? No. Okay? Yeah, that was a little bit of an reaction. No. The best defense in the country is either Texas or Ohio State. But LSU is top 5, 100%. This is what's crazy. So, of course, Whit Weeks goes out in the first quarter. His brother, West Weeks, comes in and has 12 tackles. So they're just reproducing Weeks there, like it's no big deal. I think they have 3 on the team. I think there's 3 Weeks brothers on this team, and Whit goes out and West just dominates. By the way, shout out to all the W names. I mean, this is lit. What a family! Just sending linebackers to LSU with W names and getting W's. This is awesome. Devon Keys played great. Who had the pick 6? Okay, Deshaun Spears. That dude can cover. He had of course, the pick 6, had 2 interceptions. AJ Halsey had an interception. DJ Pickett had an interception. And Tamarcus Cooley had an interception. A lot of those picks were DJ Lagway just hucking it up in desperation, which was terrible. Oh my gosh, DJ Lagway made some atrocious decisions out there. But LSU benefited from them. So again, cannot say more about this LSU defense, how unbelievable good it's been this year. I had no idea this is what was going to happen with LSU, but it's been happening. Offensively, this is where the concern is, at least in my opinion. Of course, Caden Durham can break off a run like nobody else. He's so quick, he's so elusive, he's hard to get on the ground because he's got a low center of gravity. He breaks arm tackles, and he's fast enough to break into the second level and make safeties miss. He had the 51-yard run, of course, early in the game, or that was late in the game. But other than really Caden Durham, you can't really run the ball very well. And Caden Durham is not the most consistent running back. He breaks off those big runs, but getting 4 or 5 yards of carry is not really his expertise, which puts pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, and Garrett Nussmeier has not been elite this year. Now, watching this game, and I did watch this game, as I was watching, I had quad screen, and then I had my iPad going. It was an awesome night. I had LSU Florida, Notre Dame A&M, I had Arkansas Ole Miss on the iPad, I had USF and Miami in the bottom right, and then top right was South Carolina Vanderbilt. Awesome night. So I watched. I had a good strong eye on LSU Florida, and Nussmeier was sailing some throws in this game. I don't know what it was. I don't know if he doesn't have the connection yet with a lot of these transfer wide receivers. Maybe that's why Barian Brown and Nick Anderson have really not been able to do very much. Most of it's Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson. But with that being said, he also made some NFL-level throws, which is what we expected of Garrett Nussmeier. The touchdown pass to Xavier Thomas was a 30-yard bullet right over the middle on a skinny post route. Beautiful throw. So he makes throws like that. There's flashes from Nussmeier, which again is what we saw last year. Last year was very inconsistent. He was a gunslinger. He would go out there and he would make plays. He was not afraid. He was aggressive. But he wasn't perfect, and he would make a lot of mistakes. And we're sort of seeing that same Garrett Nussmeier again this year, which I don't want to say is a concern for LSU, but again, it's a question mark. How does this factor in when you keep playing big games in the SEC? Honestly, if their defense keeps playing like this, it's not really going to be that much of a concern. But if they don't, if, for example, you go into Ole Miss, and Ole Miss takes a 2-touchdown lead into the second half, and you got to come back, and Garrett Nussmeier has to make plays. We know he can, but will he? We don't know. He's inconsistent. You have a couple games like that on your schedule. Of course, like I just said, you got to go into Ole Miss. Ole Miss got a big win tonight against Arkansas. You also got to go into Tuscaloosa and play Alabama, who's looking awesome right now. So that's not going to be easy. You might go trailing in that game. You got to play A&M. Marcel Reed just played like prime Johnny Manziel. That's a stretch. I apologize. That's a stretch. But he played great, and you got to win that game. You got to play Vandy on the road. Vandy's 3-0, guys. We're going to talk about Vandy in a little bit, but you got to play at Vandy. And you also have Oklahoma to finish the year on the road, and Arkansas. So you got some tough SEC games. We're just painting a scenario here. Of course, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if this happens, if the defense bends a little bit, if Arkansas or Oklahoma or Alabama or Ole Miss or Vanderbilt or any of these teams start hot on offense and take a lead, can you trust your offense to bring you back into the game and win you a game on the road in an SEC environment? I don't know. I don't know with LSU. I haven't seen that from Garrett Nussmeier consecutively so far in his career at LSU. So that's my concern about LSU. Honestly, if you're really asking me my opinion, I think LSU's great. I do. I think they're super talented. I think they can beat anybody if they play their best game. But I don't think they're invincible. I don't think they're the third best team in the country. Again, I really like LSU. I bet, my grandmother had an awesome time watching this game. The mayor was texting about it all week. Big excited about Florida, and they got the win. So all my grandmother's teams got a win. So she had a great day. But once LSU starts really getting into the SEC gauntlet, it's going to be interesting to see what this team can do. I still have them just outside of the playoffs, but I could be completely wrong about that. It could go any which way. And if you're hearing that now, you're probably saying, really? That's crazy. They're number 3 in the country. They've beaten 2 1-2 teams and Louisiana Tech. So we might be overrating LSU a little bit, but they're still great. I don't want to take anything away from LSU. Now shifting to the Florida Gators. Wow, this was, again, another tough start to the year. Going into the year, I thought 2 things about Florida. I thought, A, DJ Lagway is getting so overrated. And I know, you're saying, oh, of course you said this, Robert. He just threw 5 interceptions. You're going to give yourself credit. I did say this repeatedly, over and over again. Why are we talking about DJ Lagway like he's going to win the Heisman Trophy? We have not seen that from him yet. Last year, of course, the deep ball accuracy was great. But other than that, those wins against Ole Miss, against LSU, against Florida State that people were praising Lagway for, that was all the defense. The defense literally gave him, put him on a silver pedestal. Oh no, Cal's breaking off a big run. Come on, Minnesota. But for DJ Lagway, he didn't go out and win those games last year. And people were talking about him like he was one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. He was not, and he is not. I still haven't seen that from DJ Lagway. I still don't trust DJ Lagway. He looks rattled out there. Did he make some big throws? Kind of. I don't know. I don't see it from DJ Lagway. I have not seen it. 5 interceptions. It looked like he was giving up on a lot of those throws. It looked like he was saying, oh, pressure's in my face, nobody up, and I'm just going to throw it up, and LSU's probably going to catch it. And they did. So this is the second consecutive game that we've seen Florida do this. Again, so just undisciplined with the penalties, Florida. I don't know if y'all saw the beginning of the game. They had a chance to go up 10-0, and there was a holding penalty. And they had a couple more plays like that where they got penalized. I was like, oh man, these are backbreakers, Florida. I mean, they couldn't run the ball. Their defense played pretty good, which is what the scouting report was. My scouting report going into the year was, wow, this Florida defense is great. The people around DJ Lagway are great. If DJ Lagway can be okay, which I think that's where he is, then this Florida team can be great. And DJ Lagway, unfortunately, has been bad. Straight up bad. And the Florida defense played good against LSU. Holding LSU to 20 points preseason, you're saying, okay, I'm taking that. And they did. But couldn't run the ball on offense, couldn't establish any rhythm, didn't give DJ Lagway much help in that department, but rough game for this offense. Of course, if you know anything about Florida, you know 2 things. A, Billy Napier's on the hot seat, and B, their schedule is tougher than, whatever you want to ever imagine. They're about to go through an absolute gauntlet. It's like they're playing NFL teams every single week. It's crazy. So if you're saying, okay, well, we'll be fine. We'll get something going. You got at Miami next week, so there's that. Then you get a bye week, and you play Texas. Then you play at Texas A&M. Then you play Mississippi State. Then you play Georgia. Then Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State at the end of the year. So, you know what? Florida started last year? They started last year 1-2. They got blown out by Miami, and they got blown out by Texas A&M. This is a better start this year than last year because they haven't gotten blown out yet. So maybe it'll happen again where they're competitive at the end of the year and Billy Napier hangs on. And I want it for Billy Napier because I like Billy Napier. He seems like a good guy. He's a great recruiter. But you gotta show some results at some point. If he can get to next year, and I don't know this for sure, but their schedule should be a whole lot easier, then it might be time to actually see what Billy Napier can do. At least I hope that's the case. If it's not, maybe don't schedule these tough out-of-conference games against Miami and get lucky with the SEC scheduling, because this is going to be a rough year for Florida, especially if they can't run the ball and DJ Lagway keeps throwing 5 interceptions every game. So again, big win for LSU. Yeah, they're going to be ranked probably number 2 in this next AP poll. Gosh, I hate the AP poll so much. Do I think they're the second best team in the country? No, but they're great. They're great. They have some big games this year, which I'm excited to watch. And Cal just scored a touchdown. Can we not tackle their tight end, gentlemen? Oh, this college football is just going to give me like a heart attack. There's so much stress. Come on, Minnesota. We're still in this game. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because my Gophers are losing. My Gophers got to win. Next game I want to talk about is another one that I'm so excited to talk about. The Vanderbilt Commodores, who haven't beaten South Carolina since 2008. The Vanderbilt Commodores, who haven't started 3-0 since 2007. The Vanderbilt Commodores, who haven't won their SEC opener since 2007. Who haven't won their first 3 games by 20-plus points since 1930. Just went into Williams-Brice Stadium, a night game, sandstorm, in South Carolina and won 31-7 against the number 11 team in the country. Vanderbilt, it's Vanderbilt. What is going on with Vanderbilt? I love every second of it. A lot of Alabama fans out there are saying, "Oh my gosh, they're so cocky over there." Diego Pavia, he just talks his mouth off. You know what, Diego? Keep talking, because you can talk when you can back up the talk, and that's exactly what Pavia is doing, which I love. I love everything about this Vanderbilt story the last couple of years. I think it's so awesome. I think it's great for the SEC. It's great for college football. And again, another thing, just like Georgia Tech, it brings a smile to my face. I love Diego Pavia. I love the mantra of this team, the swagger that they play with. And they just dominated South Carolina on the road. I mean, this game, of course, it was close in the first quarter, but Vanderbilt took a 14-7 lead into the second quarter, and they just did not look back. Now, a lot of the reason why South Carolina didn't have the juice was because they didn't have Lenora Sellers. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Vanderbilt, they ran the ball so well in the second half. Final stat sheet, they had 146 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. But, you know, John Mazzell, I think that's how you say this guy's name, Lassiter, had a huge touchdown run and a jet sweep. Diego Pavia had a couple of huge plays in this game on third down. He's such a dog out there. Diego Pavia is he's a baller. Again, not the most efficient, best quarterback in the SEC, but he is a baller. But mostly, why Vanderbilt won this game is because of how great their defense was. You know, South Carolina, the hate on South Carolina all offseason is, oh, well, you have a great quarterback in Lenora Sellers, but who on earth is going to step up from that wide receiver position? And surprise, surprise, nobody has. This South Carolina offense has looked lethargic. It doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have an idea of what it's doing. It doesn't have any consistency. They rely fully on big plays. We saw that against Virginia Tech. And this is a Vanderbilt defense that completely limited their big plays. And other than Nick Harbor had 4 catches for 66 yards. None of your wide receivers really stood up. And it just provides the offense with staleness. After Lenora Sellers went down, couldn't really run the ball very effectively. And when you can't run the ball effectively and none of your wide receivers are sticking up, your offense really can't function. And Vanderbilt went out there and took full advantage of that. They stuffed the run for the most part. South Carolina did not run the ball for 100 yards. And again, no big plays to the passing game for the most part. Their longest catch was 33 yards to Jordan Dingle, which is more on a catch and run anyway. So Vanderbilt's defense, which, by the way, was not great last year, went out and won this game on the road. So much respect for the Commodores. So much belief in Vanderbilt, what they have to do. Vanderbilt could do anything at this point. They have done anything at this point. They've won big road games against top 15 teams. They've beaten number 1 Alabama. They've won bowl games. They've made it to the top of the SEC in terms of accomplishments and what they've been able to do. So I believe in Vanderbilt. I think they're going to win against Georgia State and Utah State at home. Those are the next 2 games. They have Georgia State, Utah State, and then, oh my goodness. So we all remember what happened last year. Alabama comes off a bye week, beats Georgia, and then loses to Vanderbilt. Well, guess what? And just guess what? Just imagine this. Just guess what? Alabama just beat Wisconsin. Now they have a bye week. Then they play Georgia. And then they play Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to be 5-0 coming into that game because I don't think they're going to lose to Georgia State like they did last year. Shouldn't lose to Utah State. So whether or not Alabama wins that game against Georgia, the next week they're going to have to come back to Tuscaloosa and play Vanderbilt. And just to set the scene here, guys, just to set the scene. Vanderbilt, by the way, destroyed Virginia Tech on the road in week 2 in the second half. Just demolished South Carolina on the road. What more could they have shown us? Right now, ESPN has Alabama favored by 24 points. That is madness. Vanderbilt, oh my gosh, that game, if Alabama beats Georgia, which could very well happen, and Vanderbilt beats Georgia State and Utah State, that game is going to be so hyped up. I cannot wait for that game. It makes me want Alabama to win so badly against Georgia just so that this game is so hyped up. I cannot wait for it. And you have a shot. You have a shot at all the big dogs. If you're Vanderbilt, you play LSU, you play Missouri, you play Texas, you play Auburn. I mean, I would not be shocked at this point if Vanderbilt wins any of these games. Vanderbilt pulling off these upsets at this point is not a shocker anymore. Would I pick it to happen? Not necessarily, but again, not a shocker. Huge win for Vanderbilt. It's unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish. So impressed with them. And this is the SEC this year. Literally anyone can beat anyone in the SEC. No team. You cannot pick one team in the SEC and tell me that they're a really bad team. I think Kentucky's probably the worst team. But other than them, Mississippi State looks great. Vanderbilt looks awesome. These teams that were not expected to be very good, even Tennessee, I didn't think Tennessee was going to be very good. They looked incredible against Georgia. Auburn is undefeated. Who else did I say was going to be not great in the SEC? Texas A&M just beat Notre Dame on the road. It's loaded. The SEC is loaded. So I cannot wait for the rest of this year in the Southeastern Conference. It's going to be cinema. And as far as South Carolina goes, again, the offense, if you lose LaNorris Sellers for a substantial amount of time, we'll get an injury update, I'm sure, about him this next coming week. But if you lose him for a substantial amount of time, it might be a rough year for those Gamecocks fans out there. It might not be easy going in the SEC. As far as other games, Alabama wins at 11 o'clock at home against Wisconsin. They dominated this game for the most part. The only offensive touchdown Wisconsin scored was in the fourth quarter, kind of in garbage time. It was a great throw to Vinny Anthony Jr. out there, but their other touchdown was a kick return. Alabama, of course, again, looked spectacular. Of course, if we're forgetting the Florida State game, just some interesting stats on Alabama. First of all, they haven't turned the ball over this year. Second of all, Ty Simpson, since Florida State, has just been like a perfect quarterback, like legitimately perfect. And I'm not stressed. Like, he was 17 for 17 against Louisiana Monroe. Against Wisconsin, his stat line's loading again. ESPN a little slow sometimes. We try and move fast paced here on this show, but ESPN sometimes holds us back a little bit. But Ty Simpson just makes unbelievable throws, especially in man coverage. He's smart. He checks the ball down. He doesn't push it downfield when he doesn't need to. And I really think he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. As far as this defense goes, again, looked great. Alabama's receiving core also, with Jeremy Bernard, how good he's looked. Ryan Williams finally getting back into the shape of Ryan Williams. This was his first 100-yard plus receiving game since Georgia last year. So that's big for him. Latsier Brooks, the freshman, looks great. Here's Ty Simpson's stat line. ESPN finally loaded it for us. 24 of 29, 382 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 2 of those incompletions were blatant drops, 1 in the end zone for Ryan Williams. So Ty's been unbelievable. The concern for Alabama is on the offensive end. It is the rushing game. Of course, against Florida State, you completely abandoned it. You didn't even try to run the ball. And then against Louisiana Monroe, your leading rusher was Ty Simpson, which, of course, that's never a bad thing for your leading rusher to be your quarterback. But when your quarterback has 25 yards rushing and he's your leading rusher, that is a problem. Alabama had 22 carries for 72 yards. That is not impressive at all. Again, Wisconsin's linebackers are great. So some credit has to be given to the Badgers for stuffing the Alabama run. But again, running game doesn't look great. That's something they need to fix, especially playing Georgia in a couple weeks. Alabama does get a bye before they play the Dogs. As far as Wisconsin goes, Billy Edwards has got to get healthy. They've got a gauntlet of a schedule similar to Florida. So look out, Wisconsin. As far as Alabama, they could beat anybody. I completely believe that. I believe they can beat Georgia in a couple weeks. Will they? I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to pick in that game. But I do believe that game is going to be awesome. Mark your calendars for 2 weeks from now on Saturday. We're going to get 2 awesome games with Oregon, Penn State, and Alabama, Georgia. I know y'all have been hearing about that all season, but it's going to be great. Penn State finally starts their year in a couple weeks. They just beat Villanova. Sure, Penn State. Yeah, Penn State, God, can you play somebody out of conference, Penn State? That's so boring. They should be penalized for that. Hopefully they do get penalized for that. Oregon with a big win over Northwestern. A lot of people say, oh, you only won by 20. It's a win on the road, an 11 o'clock sluggish game. I would take it if I was Oregon. Not mad at all. Miami absolutely just curb stomps South Florida. I was expecting that, to be honest. I didn't really think Miami was going to, fall to the Florida, whatever happened to Florida with South Florida. They're just too consistent. They're too dominant on the front seven. And unlike Florida, they don't use ridiculous play calling and a bunch of pizzazz to try and beat people. They just line up and beat them. Arch Manning struggled again with UTEP. That offense has got to get it figured out, man. They're really lucky they have one of the best, if not the best, defenses in college football. If they didn't have that, I would have legitimate concerns. Again, I trust Steve Sarkisian blindly to get it figured out, but it looks rough right now. I'm not going to spend all day talking about Texas because you can just look at literally anyone else in college football for that. Illinois wins pretty easily. USC goes into Purdue and gets a big win against an undefeated Boilermakers team. Big win for them. First Big Ten win of the year. They might get ranked. Who knows? Oklahoma. I was really concerned about this game for Oklahoma going at Temple. It's a road game. Weird game. You got a road game at Temple. It's kind of bizarre. And it's right after a big win against Michigan. And it's right before a big game against Auburn. So I thought they might struggle. But they didn't struggle at all. John Mateer is still making Heisman-level plays. He was my preseason Heisman pick. He remains to be. People might say, it's just Temple. Sure. But, Iowa State almost lost to Arkansas State on the road. So anything can happen. Ole Miss, big win against Arkansas. Turns out, A, Arkansas's defense is still bad. But B, Lane Kiffin is still an offensive genius. His ability to ball out with a backup quarterback was great. Austin Simmons' health is going to be interesting. But big SEC win for Ole Miss. They also held Arkansas to just 7 points in the second half. A lot of that was turnovers forced by them, which is not an easy thing to do against the Bobby Petrino offense. So big shout out to Ole Miss. Utah with a win over Wyoming. It's interesting with Utah because their claim to fame is a blowout win against UCLA, who's getting blown out by about everyone at this point. So that is an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Auburn wins, Missouri wins, Michigan wins. Just another amazing week of college football. And that's really all I can say. These weeks just make me smile. We got so many more of these weeks left, too. It's just week 3, ladies and gentlemen. So college football has a lot more to give us. It's got a lot more magic left in it. And a lot more magic left in this game with Minnesota and Cal. I can't wait to watch the rest of it. And I can't wait for week 4. I can't wait for week 5. It's college football, ladies and gentlemen. And we just saw some of the best of it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching, that's awesome. That's unbelievable. You must be a big college football fan just like I am. And if you're still watching, just try and love the people around you this week. Try and make them smile. And try and just have a blessed week. And try it to let Jesus and God work through you. And spread their love to the rest of the world. So thanks for watching. God bless. I'm going to watch the rest of this Minnesota game. And I will see y'all in the next episode or not. And if not, that's fine. So once again, God bless. Thanks for watching. And I'll see y'all later. Go Gophers, baby!